Let's bring in now retired Air Force General Richard Myers, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff under President George W. Bush. General Myers, thanks for being here.
You bet, Brett.
Hard to believe, 20 years. You know, back then, you had another 3 weeks before you were permanently going to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Talk to me about the reflections of 9/11 that day.
Well, I was acting chairman that day, as I think you know, and it was a day that's imprinted on my memory, will never leave, of course. The visuals of people leaping out of the World Trade Centers to save themselves, the carnage, the loved ones lost and the loved ones left behind, the heroic acts by first responders, fire, police, medical, and of course the members on the crew, the passengers on Flight 93 that crashed in Pennsylvania. So I think a lot about that. I also think about how unified this country was right after 9/11, driving around Washington, D.C. and seeing cars with American flags streaming out of them all over the city by everybody. We were very cohesive in that day in our thoughts and in our wishes for dealing with Al Qaeda. I can remember the visits to Congress, a lot of solidarity there as well. Of course, 20 years, a lot has changed for a lot of reasons, but I kind of long for that solidarity that 9/11 brought to the United States of America.
You wish you had done something different after 9/11? You've had kind of 2 decades to look back, and from your perspective, your vantage point?
Yeah, so for my perch, I think the one thing that frustrated me the longer I was in office, and of course I left in 2005, but was the inability of the United States to bring all our instruments of national power to bear on the problem. So I think we overused the military instrument. And I mean, just calling it a war on terror, if it's a war, that must mean the military, right? But it was more than that. It was competition, a battle of ideas, competition inside the Islam to figure their way to deal with modernity. And these are issues left to the economic instruments of power, informational, political, diplomatic. And I don't think those were brought to bear in the way they should have been to help with the military piece, which the military is going to play a piece of this, of course, a big role, but they can't do it alone. And that's one of the things that is frustrating me, that we could never kind of get any traction on those kind of ideas.
I wanted to play a soundbite back from the press conference where we just initiated military action inside Afghanistan. Take a listen.
Today, our forces have begun the initial part of military operations in the war against terrorism. Visible or not, our friends and enemies should understand that all instruments of our national power, as well as those of our friends and allies around the world, are being brought to bear on this global menace.
Innocent lives are still at risk today and will be until we have dealt with the terrorists. If there were an easy, safe way to root terrorist networks out of countries that are harboring them, it would be a blessing, but there is not.
Now, it's interesting to look back at the start of that, and today, General, the Taliban, that you called a terror group now, is in control of Afghanistan. Just get your thoughts on how things have gone over the last couple of weeks and what you've seen.
Well, I mean, for those of us that were on the front end of this, that saw the hope in the eyes and thoughts and conversations we had with our Afghan friends, to have that all dashed, or at least most of it dashed at this point, is just so sad. And of course, the way it all ended was a little bit chaotic, a lot chaotic. It would have been nice if it could have been more orderly, but I don't have any inside information. I don't know about all the planning that went behind all that. It was just kind of sad to see it come out like that. And then since we've been so involved in Afghan charities and so forth since my tenures, particularly my wife, Mary Jo, lots of calls for help to get us on lists that would get people that felt they were at risk or their families were at risk, to get them out of Afghanistan. And it's just heartbreaking. I mean, 20 years, a lot of people have been educated. A lot of women have been educated in those 20 years. Thousands of people have had a better education than they ever had hoped for under the Taliban before them. And so where is that going to go? I don't think any of us know at this point. We'll see if this Taliban is a new and better Taliban. I think a lot of us have our doubts, but we're hopeful too that maybe they'll be different this time around, or enough different to give everybody a chance.
Yeah, we just heard from Lucas Tomlinson down at Guantanamo Bay. Why do you think there hasn't been a trial for the 9/11 mastermind? We're at 20 years here, and we're at pre-trial hearings.
Yeah, I think it's well documented that several presidents have tried really hard to close it down and expedite these trials, and the complexities of the issues involved are such, I guess, that they just can't get it done. I do not know the intricacies anymore. When I was on active duty, we were not quite to the trial stage when I was still in service, and so I haven't followed it closely enough to know the legal complexities of why this isn't happening. But it's clearly not good. It's not good for the U.S. image. As bad as these people are, they need a trial. That's one of the things that we guarantee our citizens. I know they're not our citizens, but the right thing to do is get on with the trial and let justice take its course.
Two more things. Should the military be held accountable for, let's say, happy talk about the status of Afghan national forces, considering what we saw in recent days? Is the media involved in that? Should we have been asking tougher questions to you all?
That's a great question, and those were the same questions we had when I was chairman, as we're starting to train people, and how many resources do we put to training Afghan forces and so forth, and can they be an effective force in the end? It turned out they weren't, but I think what they rely on a lot, as the country was trying to become a country and not a group of tribes, I think they relied heavily on U.S. advisors to focus them and to be the informal leaders and the inspiration for what they were doing. And without that, then it falls apart pretty quickly. And I'm also told there was a lot of corruption in the hierarchy in the Afghan army. So the higher ranking officers were maybe not always paying the lower ranking officers, which doesn't build a lot of loyalty, obviously. So I think there were a lot of issues with that, and I think we all should have been asking a lot of questions. I obviously I haven't been in many briefing rooms where that was discussed, so I can't give you the specifics on it.
Last thing, it's a heavy one for the last one. In retrospect, in 20 years looking back, do you think going into Iraq was a mistake and drained resources and attention from Afghanistan?
I don't personally. I don't think that was as big an issue as people like to make it. Certainly, those are two big operations. They do take. I mean, it's the intellectual capital and the energy you have to deal with problems, but I think we could handle that. Things ebbed and flowed, right? So Afghanistan at one point was looking pretty good, then it got worse, then it got a little bit better. And I remember telling a reporter in Afghanistan on one of my first visits that if we're going to be successful in Afghanistan, the Afghan people are going to need several generations to change, if they want to change for the better. And we never got there. But I'm not sure I would say that we didn't have the resources to do both. Although when you consider all instruments of national power, we made both of those problems heavily a military problem, and I think that wasn't correct.
General Myers, we really appreciate your time on this day. I enjoyed listening to you at Secretary Rumsfeld's funeral and the words you said about working alongside him, and we appreciate your remembrances today.
I hope everybody remembers. This was tomorrow is an important commemoration of surprise, which was bad. We don't want to be surprised again, and a glimpse into what just a handful of people that are willing to hurt innocent men, women, and children can do when they're properly motivated. That threat's still out there, and I think we need to remain vigilant, and people should work very hard so we aren't surprised again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Brett.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.